I house hacked before, John did. I'm a little older. And I was house hacking before it was even a term. I never heard the term, but I bought a house while I was in college and then had friends and roommates, eventually a family member, move in and we split bills. We had some wild and crazy, nights as you can imagine, but there's a lot of good times that taught me responsibility, how to fix things, how, the responsibility of being a property manager, which that can be a challenging part is managing tenants, managing people you're living with. Tenants slash roommates can present a certain set of challenges. So we got stories on dealing with that and all kinds of people and different states of mind and different levels of maturity because you run across all types in this business. But it was a great way. It was a great springboard for me to get a house, build up some credit, get a good price. John was saying the appreciation went up, while I did this. I had friends or family tell me it's crazy, or you're too young to buy a house. You can't afford a house. You're still in college and kind of thing. And it worked out great, but it wasn't without its trials and tribulations. I would do it again if I was young in the same situation. I encourage others to do it as well because it's a great way to get your first property and other people help pay for it.
So 100%. So before we get to the commandments, I'm going to offer an alternative view. I don't think you said you would do it again. I don't think my wife would be down for that.
No, if I was young again.
So yeah, okay. So we're saying you're young because because I did it as a kid. Like it was me, my brother, my mom, and dad, and we lived and we kept moving from one part to the next, and it was just stressful because you're like, oh man, I got to turn this house. The people tore up the house. My dad wasn't a help. Okay, he wasn't the best landlord. He didn't know how to get the right market rent, so he'll get a little frustrated. People had a hard time paying $200 a month back then, and he had to kick them out and evict them. All this stuff is in our front yard now.
Sure.
And so there's all this. So not everybody, it may not be for you if you have a family, but if you're unattached or you just don't have anybody, that could be the best situation,
That, and you can get creative with the way houses are laid out and make a situation more for you than you think it is. Right.
Okay.
So one client that I had the house had, they were a family, had the similar concerns. The wife was the one not having it. And I was like, well, what I did was I had a violet on J County. It was effectively my first one in that house. Like, it was a violet. So it had kind of the top and bottom naturally to it. We put a little kitchenette in there and a divider and locked the door in between the top and the bottom of the house. The other family entered the back. They entered the front. The house was effectively a duplex, right? But they never actually crossed paths. They never saw each other. I paid for somebody to mow the lawn. They had to keep up with the outside like rental would, but they never saw anybody, and they were able to access a lot more equity, a lot faster, and build a lot more personal wealth a lot faster because they rented out half of that house that they didn't necessarily need that.
See, that's absolutely amazing. So the first commandment, thou shalt live where you invest, right? How do you do that? You choose a property that makes sense to live in and then rent out. That qualifies for single families, just like John was talking about. Also qualifies for duplexes, triplexes, and up to 4 units where you can literally live in one of the units and rent out the other units. Now, bear this in mind. Not all duplexes, not all triplexes, and not all fourplexes are created equal. The more units, up to 4, tend to be smaller individualized units. Sometimes triplexes have a really good mix. There may be a 2-bedroom, 2-bath on one level, maybe 2-bedroom, 1-bath on the next level, and then maybe a studio up top. You want to really think that through. What do you guys think about some of your early house hacking? And I know you did a single family. What about some other types of property types?
I mean, honestly, any property type that can be subdivided without a whole lot of work is going to work for you, right? This is where your creativity has to come involved because the bi-level works well for me. Most guys my age that are 20 in their 20s don't care about living in a basement. So I turned the basement into a bedroom. That was simple enough. The downstairs kid bedroom was a little too small. Okay, just rent it for a little cheaper. Finding out it didn't quite make as much as the rest in the friend group and give them a little bit of a deal, right? There's 2 extra bedrooms upstairs. I use those accordingly and rent them out as well. no matter what the property is, it's more about finding a way to use it for what you want it to be used for than going in there and saying, well, this type of property is right or that type of property is right. I would encourage you to try to make a property fit what you want it to do when you're looking at them. That said, for first timers, if you're going to do it, I would stay under 4 units, pretty much in all circumstances because of the loans it's going to allow you to get. That's the biggest advantage to house hacking is with a traditional investment loan, you're going to need 15 to 25% down, depending on the lender minimum, and you're going to have much higher rates. If you go to a primary home, it's just going to house hack it. You're going to be able to put 3.5% down and get lower rates. So the combination of having a lower rate and slightly less down payment, you'll have roughly the same monthly payment as you would if you bought an investment property, but you get to live in this one, right? And you get to let somebody else pay for it, which is why we're all doing investing.
That's true.